Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 75. Yep, 75 episodes of Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast. And look, I want to thank everybody for listening, for watching the videos, for, putting in comments and suggestions and all that stuff. I really appreciate it. You guys have been awesome. Before we get started, this episode is going to be with my buddy Brock Wingo. In this episode, it's kind of a BS session. We talk about, broadheads. We talk about his turkey stuff. I'm not really a big turkey hunter, as you're going to hear in the episode, but I figured it's something that we could talk about, considering it is pretty much turkey season nationwide. So before we get started, a lot of people have been talking about the intro being long, so I'm going to make this one very short. The podcast is brought to you guys by VPA, my favorite broadhead company. Very blessed to be working with them. If you like their products and want to check them out, go to vparchery.com. You can use their promo code that they gave us to give to you guys, SEBH10, and that saves you 10% site-wide. Next up is going to be Summit Tree Stands. I say it every time. Summit is by far the leader when it comes down to climber tree stands in the market. They also have more than climbers. They got sticks, hang-ons, accessories, all that stuff. I've been working with Summit for a little over a year now, I think about a year and a half. And dude, I'm so thankful that they came on and partnered up with us. And they gave us a code that you guys have been using, so keep on using it. It is SEBH15, and that saves you 15% site-wide. Next up is going to be Osseo gear. Osseo, perfect camo for right now in turkey season and for deer season, pretty much any kind of hunting as far as I'm concerned. I love it. Joe Miles is an awesome dude. Great company, great people over there, and a great product. So go check them out. Go to osseogear.com. If you see something you like, use the code that we have for you guys. It's a one-time use code, SEBH, saves you 15%, and then go back and use SBH10. That will save you, I believe, 10%. So, trying to make this one short, let's rattle them off. We got Scout Tech. Scout Tech's going to be doing a giveaway at the bow shoot. And I believe when this episode drops, it's going to be 2.5 weeks. It's coming up quick. You want more info on that, reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to give any info you guys need. Scout Tech is a cell camera company. And, it's owned by some really great people. And I'm just very thankful that we get to work with them. Dude, who else? Obsession Bows. I love my HB33. Obviously, we're doing a video intro. If I had it with me, I'd show you. But it's a beautiful bow. It is a great bow. And, go check out their website, obsessionbowsrefuel.com, and you can see the new 2024 lineup. There's a lot of different bows they just came out with. I don't know when they're going to hit the market exactly, when dealers will get them, but once they do, I will let you guys know. Dialed Archery. Dude, I love my dialed sight. It is amazing. It is literally, I have to say, the best sight that I've ever shot. So if you guys are in the market for a new sight, go to dialedarchery.com, go customize your sight, and then you will get one that is strictly pretty much made for your bow. It is amazing the things you can do with it. Gosh, dude, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. If I am, I'm sorry. I haven't really had to do it this quick, but look, before we get in this episode, I always have to say this. If you, are struggling in life, if you've got something going on and you don't know Jesus, I really want you to open your mind to it, open your heart to it, give him a shot. He has changed my life. If I could tell you guys, my testimony, it would take probably 3 podcasts. It's crazy, but the Lord has done some crazy things in my life. And I just want to share his word with you guys and sort of push that. Not on anybody. I'm not trying to make anybody mad, but, if it offends you, I'm sorry, but I have to do what I'm called to do. And so I'm using this platform to do it. So yeah, go read your Bible, go shoot your bow. And look, man, let's get into it with Mr. Brock Wingo. All right, y'all, we got the Gobbler Gangster, my boy from Michigan, the Northern Nightmare. Mr. Gonna shoot a deer and not be able to find it because the shot wasn't that good. Mr. Brock Wingo, the man who's got a 1970s action movie star name. I mean, this dude should have been in Rambo. Honestly, he wasn't even a twinkle in his dad's eye yet. But we got him back. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff, maybe some controversial stuff. But before we do that, Brock, why don't you tell everybody that's listening and watching what you've been up to since the last time you were on. I know that you have been in talks about doing another podcast. mean, what's up, dude? What's been going on? I talk to you every day,
So
so I feel like I know, but
yeah, yeah. So since last time, I'll actually go grab this real quick. Since last time we discussed my Buckeye shot. So here's a finished product of my Euro from my
straight stud.
Michigan 11 point.
That's a stud.
Yeah,
That's sir. That is a Midwestern 3.5.
yeah. So yeah, did that Euro and shot my doe on Christmas Eve. You saw that, and
Mhm.
just been coyote hunting and mainly looking for turkeys since then.
So, all right, you know what? Let's just dive into it because I know this episode's got potential to go pretty long. So I'm trying. I want to get this out of the way before we get into the nitty gritty stuff. Um, you've been telling me since I met you basically that you guide turkey hunts, and as you know, I'm not a turkey hunter at all. I mean, I would go. I have nothing against it. I just don't find it as interesting as deer hunting or anything that's got antlers. So, can you kind of like explain what the whole turkey guiding thing is, and I guess what your history is with that, how you got into it, the people that you're planning on taking this year. I know you've got one name that is absolutely just insane, but
Hmm.
I'll let you tell everybody about it. So why don't you tell us about, what it means to be a turkey or a guide for turkey hunts?
Okay. So I'll start with I can't mention the name of Mr. Big Shot I'll be taking. So I'll start off with that. Can't mention that
Dang.
on here. But you know,
I
but
know, I know. I thought you could say it. Well, now I feel like
no,
you
no, I can't, but it's all right. So I only got into it last year. This is only my second year doing it. But going into last season, I put a post in a Facebook group for Michigan turkey hunters and just offered to take like anybody who's new to turkey hunting and needs some help. I offered to take some people like for free or for gas money. And my now buddy over at Strut Seeker Outdoors reached out to me and asked me if I was interested in guiding. And I said, well, I mean, yeah, if I can make money doing what I was offering to do for free, I'm all for it. So he reached out to me and I took a couple groups for him last year and had some fun. Should have had a guy from Indiana on a really, really, really big Tom, but he didn't shoot and he didn't pay me. So it was a big ordeal with him not being a paying customer.
mm,
So
sounds
I didn't
fun.
end up getting it. I didn't end up getting anybody a turkey last year while I was guiding, which sucked, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you're not selling like guaranteed, pen raised turkey hunts, like those turkey
Mm-mm.
shoots that go on every year. So, I mean, Pete, that's a big thing. Like, obviously, I've talked with guides that take dudes out, in the West and stuff like that. And one thing that I've always heard from each one of them is that they always end up having one guy who goes there and thinks he's going to shoot some giant deer, and then he either shoots one that's too small for him, which I think is stupid, or he just doesn't shoot anything. And then he wants
Mm-hmm.
to get mad and say, well, why did I pay, $5,000 for this hunt and get nothing out of it? And it's like you're missing
Yeah.
the point. So I mean, like, do you deal with that? Is that something that you've dealt with in the past? I know you said you had a guy that didn't pay, but I mean, what's because you're on the other side of it. You're like the hunter, but you're also now guiding. So I mean,
Yeah.
what's is that sort of something that's normal, or is it
So
uh, like a Western
so
thing?
just in my little experience last year was like that first group I took, the dude was like dodgy the whole time at first. Like so the rule is no going out until you pay. And so we were like halfway out in the field and I'm like, "Oh shoot, I forgot to have you pay me." He's like, "Oh man, my truck's locked already. I'll get it when we get back." And so then I was talking to him while we were sitting at the base of the tree. And mind you, so this is important backstory. As we're sitting at the base of this tree, we got three toms to our right hammering. We got one tom to our left hammering. And then on the neighbor's property, like 400 yards away, there's two other toms hammering. And so, while we're sitting, he's just like talking to me. He's like, "By the way, how old are you?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm 19, and then after that he was a completely different person. He was all friendly at first, and then I told him I was 19, and that must have just like hurt his ego or something, and he's just like an a-hole after that. And every single time I was like well, these times close to us flew the opposite way into the neighbors, so we're gonna go down to the power line where those far away ones were and try to call them down the power line to us. He was like, well, I don't know, they're just really far. And like everything I told him to do, he was like had a rebuttal for it and was like trying to be the guide himself, since that he was the older guy and his kid was there. He's just acting like a tough guy after I told him how young I was. So that happened. And then at the next spot, it's so textbook perfect, this next hunt. We roll up to this field and there's 3 toms hanging out within 40 yards of the road. And then there's 1 tom way off in the field. And so we drive down, park the trucks, walk back, and go into the woods. And first yelp out of my mouth at them, all 4 of them gobble. And I can't see the ones close, but I know they're close. And so I can see the one out in the field. And the first call I made to him, he started coming in. And like that never happens. And then I'm sitting there and they keep gobbling at me. And I'm trying to not call that much because it was a risky setup because it was so running like fly by the seat of our pants. So next thing I know, I stopped calling, so they've went quiet. Next thing I know, I see some movement, literally like 15 yards max in front of us. Shoot, my dog just came.
Oh man, needs your puppy.
Go lay down, bud.
He's making a cameo. That's all.
But yeah. Next thing I know, there's 4 toms standing at 15 yards, and it was really thick where we were. But when they got to us, I call it periscoping, where they put their head up and it looks like a periscope. They all put their heads up and they look around, and I'm like, dude, shoot him. Because him and his son both have guns ready to shoot. And I'm like, just take one. There's 4 of them right there. They don't shoot. And then because they're so close and they periscoped us, they saw us and left. And then once they get out in the field, this one was limping and I could see his beard dragging on the ground when he was walking. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, that was such a big tom, and they just completely blew it. And so at this point, he still hasn't paid me. He owes me $400, and he has not paid me yet. So I was talking to my buddy Hunter, and I was just like, hey, this dude hasn't paid me yet, and they just screwed up a hunt that they should have had a turkey on. So I don't know what to do because it's my first time ever. And he's like, well, just tell him you're going to head home for lunch, that you have some stuff to do, and send him back to the hotel, and then we'll figure it out. And once we split up, he calls my boss and tells him that we didn't see any turkeys all morning. My spots had no toms. And he said that I sucked and I'm too young and I don't know what I'm doing. And he wants a refund of his deposit. And so then Hunter was like, okay, well, that's not the story I got. So let me call him and figure it out. And he calls me and he's like, dude, this guy's being an a-hole. You want me to just send him packing? And I was like, if he's going to say all that, yeah, send him home. So that's how my first year guiding went. And
I mean, I kind of, what that guy did obviously isn't cool, right? Like just because you're young doesn't mean anything. I mean, Michael Waddell was freaking 17 or 18 when he got in the industry, and the dude was
he was 17 when he started.
Yeah, like the dude was already a master with turkeys. So age, in my opinion, doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Like, you know, obviously you're 10 years younger than me almost, and you've been hunting way longer. Doesn't mean that what you tell me, I'm not going to believe, I'm not going to believe, or I'm not going to take as, good advice, because like, if you've been doing it your entire life, you know what you're talking about. So what it sounded to me is like the guy just had a pride problem.
Yeah.
He didn't want some kid showing him around. Which, I mean, that sucks, man. And obviously he wasn't, I'm not going to speak for him, but to me, at least in my opinion, it seems like the dude wasn't really wanting to kill a turkey, or maybe couldn't, or, you know, got turkey fever, if that's even a thing. But if you've got what, four toms at 15 yards, dude,
And
I'd
they're
try to blow two of their heads off. Like,
yeah, and
that's
it's
so
like
close.
it's like if we were bow hunting, I'd understand.
Yeah.
If like I didn't tell them to shoot and they were nervous about it, I would understand. But like it's with 12 gauges and I said to shoot
And they
and
didn't.
you still didn't do anything. And like I would understand his problem with me being so young if he had a lot of experience, but he told me the night before that he just started turkey hunting the year before and that's why he's getting a guide. So I was like, dude,
Yeah.
I'm
He
half your
probably
age.
he probably just realized how young you were and was like, "Oh, this kid doesn't know what he's doing. I got gypped or something." But what's stupid
Yeah.
is, like, even if he thought that, you literally got him on four birds. So
Hmm.
e- even if you got lucky, you still did your job. So yeah, that man, I could never be a god because I couldn't deal with somebody trying to tell someone I work for. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if it's hunting, like telling them, "Oh, your guy sucks. He's too young. He doesn't know this, this, and this." I couldn't do it because I'd call the guy up and be like, "Hey, what are you talking about? Like, that you saw
Hmm.
those poor birds, man. Why are you trying to throw me under the bus?" So
Hmm.
I hate that, dude. But I
Yeah.
mean,
But
this year, from what you've told me, sounds like you've got a much better, I guess, schedule. With
oh
people that you're
yeah.
taking out. So look, man, you know as well as I do, you got to take the hits and just keep on going. You know.
Yep.
So
And the nice thing was I had a buddy who had never shot a turkey yet and he had been really, really busting his ass all year
mhm.
to try to get one. And little did we know, my fiance's brother had permission at the spot that neighbors his house, and that's where the turkeys were all the time. Was at my fiance's brother's spot. And so next morning we took him out, and he got his first turkey that I called in for him. So I was like, "Well, I don't suck, so that dude can
Yeah.
shove it."
The way I see it is, if you've killed a turkey and you called that turkey in, you did everything you were supposed to do by yourself, or even with someone who was teaching you, if you still did it, like, at least the very basics of it. So I don't know.
Hmm.
See, that's the thing, is I'm not a turkey hunter. So I don't
Yeah,
know. To me, it's like you just go out in the woods, you listen a little bit, and then you call, and then a turkey shows up.
yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
isn't really how it is, but again, it's like people thinking with deer hunting.
Hmm.
All the non-hunters think that the whole hunting community is just a bunch of Elmer Fuds that put
Hmm.
corn out and shoot a deer no matter what it looks like, and that's just
Yeah.
not the case. So I don't know, man. I mean, that pisses me off. I hate that. I absolutely hate that.
But yeah, like you said, this year I'm sitting way prettier to have some better experiences guiding because last year I only had two farms that I could guide at. One was 40 acres and one was 90. So I
Dang.
had a grand total of 130 acres of access. This year I have a grand total of 1,060 acres
Yeah,
of turkey access. So
you put in the work, man. You were like, I probably could go back and find about 20 messages throughout one day where you're like, "Oh, I got this spot, dude. I got this spot," and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm just gonna wait until the end of the day and then be like, "All right, how many did you get?" It's like every
17.
hour. It's crazy. You were seek one in those turkeys, man.
Oh yeah.
So I guess, like, if I ever decide to make the 1,000-mile drive, or 700, no, it's probably about 1,000, I would bet, maybe a little over. If I ever decide to make that drive for a bird, I will call you, and
Yeah.
which I probably never will do that. I'd rather go deer hunting up there, but
That's
but
always fun too.
yeah, well, see, in Michigan, like, obviously we've talked about the Rompola buck and stuff. Everybody knows that deer. But I mean, there's some giants up there. You've sent me photos of some deer that either you have on camera or that circulate around the area, and Michigan's got some good bucks. So
Yeah, dude, like that one in Calhoun County, I think it was this year. It was either Calhoun or Cass County. The dude shot a 196.
yeah, in Michigan, where deer aren't supposed to be big.
Yeah.
I mean, so all right, this kind of look before we transition, is there anything else about the turkey guide and stuff that you want to tell everybody, like maybe how they can reach you if they want to come up there and do it? Or are you ready to get into like probably some more of the controversial stuff? Because you just made me think of something that may ruffle some feathers.
Oh, okay.
No
So
pun intended.
I I'll just do a shameless plug real quick. If you do want to come up and have a guided turkey hunt in Michigan for anyone listening, just find Strut Seekers Outdoors on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok and message Hunter Lawson is his name and get a hold of him. And if you want to hunt with me, request Brock, but either way, we'll get you on something.
There you go. If you guys want to go hunt with the man who's got the name of a 70s action movie star, that's it. Well, look, all right. So we got the turkey stuff kind of out of the way. And the thing that you made me think about is I want your opinion. I know that we've talked about this. I'm sure we've talked about this at length, but my monkey brain doesn't retain every conversation that I have. What's your opinion on like deer size throughout, I guess, wherever whitetails are at? So basically the whole country. But do you subscribe to the idea that certain states have less potential, or do you think that it's pretty much possible to have, giants every year in every state?
Well, so you definitely have giants in every state, but there's the few states that have more giants and bigger giants consistently. But at the same time, it's like those places have a different hunting history. Like Michigan has always been, there's just so many people that hunt here, you just shoot deer. That's how the hunting culture is here. But like, I know from the little experience I have hunting in Iowa, when you're talking to farmers out there, if you're showing them pictures of deer you have on camera or deer you've seen, if it's like under a 150 or like under a 140, depending on if it's like an 8 or a 10 point or something, they're just like, oh, yeah, that's an all right deer. It's just like even the non-hunters in Iowa that I've talked to, they think that like big deer most places are not big. So like I think it's just the culture in places like that. People have been historically shooting the bigger deer for so long that there's so many huge deer for me running around that aren't huge for them, that I just feel like there's a lot more that get to survive in places like that.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree, because obviously Iowa is like a completely different the top three for me would be Iowa, Illinois, Ohio. I mean, those three, if I ever hunted those, I'd be like, okay, I'm not shooting anything below 140 because I know that they're there. Now, granted, sounds kind of bad because I've preached to probably anyone that or everyone that's listened to this podcast that, oh, size doesn't matter. And that it's kind of changing now, like for me, because I mean, you and I have talked about like the $1 stuff that's been going on in both of our states. And it's kind of hard to compare everything because everything's so different. Like Iowa has so much ag and so much farmland and such good food sources for these deer that it's not really surprising that they have 200s every year. But like here in Georgia, we have pretty much every type of terrain you could want except maybe a desert. And even then, it's not, if there is something that's like a desert here in Georgia, it's not that big. But yet you don't see 180s, 190s taken out here, in Georgia as much
usually
as in the Midwest. Yeah. I mean, unless you're like Seek One of those guys, which, I name drop them all the time because they are truly, they've got it figured out. I mean,
I saw Lee's Instagram reel today of all his shoulder mounts from this past season.
Yeah.
And I was just like, dude, I couldn't even imagine being that good
Yeah.
and being able to just like I got my heads in here. I got my little 4.5-year-old Gaylord, Michigan buck, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine shooting a Kimbo that's quite literally 3 times that size.
Yeah. Well, dude, imagine how I feel with these two little suckers behind me. I mean, they're still big deer
Yeah.
to me, but it's like that. But see, again, that's the thing is that's why I brought this up is because to me, every state has big deer, right? So
Hmm.
say you go to like, I don't know, throw a random state out there. New Hampshire. I'm sure because I never really see giant bucks come out of there. I'm sure that there's big deer there. But
Hmm.
what makes one thing I think correlates with it is hunter pressure. I mean, obviously it has to because pressure is going to make a deer be smaller. It's going to stress them out. The genetics, because younger deer are getting killed all the time, they're going to be worse. But like it just bothers me when people will say, "Oh, that state's terrible for deer."
Yeah.
It's not. You're just not in the right spot. It is my
Hmm.
opinion. I'm not saying that's fact. But like in Georgia, dude, I hunt, a certain public land place that if you go on their Facebook page, everyone on there is like, "Oh, there's no big deer in there, there's nothing huge, there's no giants." And I'm like, "Dude, I've seen 2 or 3 in the past 3 years. What are you saying? There's nothing there, you know?" So I don't know. I was curious your opinion on that just because, you're obviously in the Rompola state and, we're not going down that rabbit hole because you and I,
We did that last time.
yeah, well, and, I flip flop every month, it feels like, because if I do enough research on that deer, my brain hurts because it's just, I don't know what to
Hmm.
believe, you know? Um, so I don't know, but yeah, I do want to come up there one year and hunt Michigan, either public or maybe Ohio, since you went last year. I want to try Midwestern states, because
Hmm.
y'all's deer are so much different than down here. Like this deer over here was probably a Labrador compared to the stuff you guys have. So I don't know. You sent me a bunch of photos last season, and I was a little jealous. I was happy for you. I was happy for you,
Yeah.
but all right. Well, look, I, let's just get into it. As you know, last week we had T-Bone on, or I had T-Bone
Hmm.
on. That episode's doing amazing, which is shocking. Um, just because the promotion, I didn't have time to promote it like normal. But one thing we talked about in there was arrows. Been doing a bunch of arrow stuff, learning a lot about arrows. So that was sort of the end of that. And now I feel like I'm getting into bows and broadheads. So what's your opinion on the people who say like, "Oh, I don't need to spend, $800 or $1,000 on a Matthews because I can go buy a $500 bear that shoots just as good." Yet they've never shot a Matthews because I was that guy.
Hmm.
So what do you think about that? You think these guys should go, the new guys that are just getting into it, do you think they should go and shoot multiple different bows, or should they just find one they can afford and get used to it? Like what if you were brand new, what would you do?
If I were able to start right now, I'd be shooting multiple different bows and just picking whichever one feels the best without losing too much, because like you could have one that feels better but it shoots slower, or it's harder to tune, or it's a lot heavier or lighter, whichever your preference is. Like I think that there's trade-offs that need to be made. Like me personally shooting, because now that I have both my fiance's Bear Adapt and my Matthews, like my Matthews feels better, shoots faster, and is way more accurate once you get to like 40 and 50 yards. It's just, I don't know what it is about the Adapt. I don't know if it's because it's not tuned right, or if it's just because of how they're built. but it just doesn't hold the groups quite as tight as my Matthews does. But I don't know. That could be fixed with some knock tuning or bear shaft tuning with the bear bow. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, me and JD talked about this for about an hour today, discussing different bows and all the stuff that's going on in the industry right now with, certain companies getting in trouble for copying other companies' patents and ideas. And I'm not dropping any names, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. It makes me wonder, because I've shot, expensive Hoyts. I haven't shot a Matthews yet. I'm going too soon just to see what the hype's all about, because that new lift that Ace over here in Social Circle has a few. So I'm probably going to shoot one of those next time I'm in there. It's just hard for me to, justify spending, like what T-Bone said last week. You go in there, you spend $3,000 and you think you're getting something, and then you shoot it and you're like, oh, that's not what I thought it was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I've sort of found that some of the lower end bows do shoot just as good, but
Yeah.
there's things that, like small things, that can make or break a bow, in my opinion, like the grip. Like if the grip's too skinny, I won't shoot it. I don't care how it feels when I draw it back. I don't care how fast it is. If that grip is too skinny and I don't like how it feels, I won't shoot it. But I do know, like, my bow, the Obsession, brand new, it's like $600, and it's supposedly supposed to be just as fast as these new Matthews, and it's almost a quarter of the price or a third of the price.
Yeah, your IBO on your bow is the same as my VXR is.
Yeah, and mine's probably half the price. Like,
yeah,
and I'm
brand
not
new,
saying
brand new. The VXR is a $1,200 bow. I didn't buy it brand new. I bought it used, but
yeah, I don't know. I feel like what I told JD is what I'll tell you. I feel like in order to know how different each manufacturer is, I just have to shoot them. That's why I wanted to ask you, because like 2 years ago when I first started this, I would say, oh, well, any bow's the same. And I'm shooting a freaking blackout intrigue that sounds like a damn firecracker when you shoot it. And the Obsession now is dead quiet compared to that. So I don't know. I was just curious your opinion on that, because that I feel is like something that's going to be coming over this summer, is sort of not really bow reviews, because obviously, the podcast is working with Obsession, but sort of learning, like, all right, what do I like in a bow? I feel like everyone needs to do that. So I don't know, but the next thing would be broadheads, and hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble. It shouldn't. But what's your opinion? Like, if we had a guy on the T-Bone episode that commented on the video that he's shooting 65 pounds. I forget what draw length, if he even said it, but
he didn't say draw length.
He
didn't looked at it.
Okay.
No.
So 65 pounds. And he said, what broadhead would you recommend? So I said VPA, anything that VPA makes. If you're going fixed, if you want mechanical, go with Sever or G5. You commented and said Magnus Stinger. So, I mean, what is, like, what's your personal preference? Because right now, with all these different broadheads that are out here, if I'm going to look at it unbiased, it's very difficult to choose.
Yeah, it is. Like I told you, I was looking the other night, and it's just like I was getting overwhelmed because I type in single bevel 2-blade broadheads, and there's a million of them. And I'm like, I don't know. I'll just stick with what I have because I don't want to think that hard about it.
Yeah.
But so I answered the guy and told him if I were starting out, just because usually people who are starting out don't like have the budget to go all in on everything. So that's why I recommended a Magnus Stinger, because like at my bow shop I go to, they're only $35 for a 3-pack of them.
I'm pretty sure that's nationwide, because at the shops I go to, that's about right. It might be 40 down here.
I've seen bigger stores with 40 and 45, but you just don't go there. But like the farthest I've shot my Magnus on my bow, I shot mine out to 60 and was stacking it with my field tips. So right out of the box with I didn't have to, and maybe my bow's just tuned good to where it didn't matter what broadhead I put on there, it would have flown the same. But for a wide fixed blade like it is, to fly exactly the same at 60 without having to touch my bow, I was pretty impressed by that for a $35 3-pack.
How many times did you shoot that? Did you just do one fixed blade or like one broadhead, one field point, or did you do multiple different rounds?
I had at that point I had broke my one arrow, so I had 7 arrows, and I had all 5 for my quiver with the broadheads on them, and 2 with field tips, and shot my whole quiver twice.
Okay.
At that distance, so
yeah. So then it's not like you just got lucky, you know.
Yeah, it wasn't like it's shooting a foot left and I pulled it on accident and got lucky. Yeah.
Well, that's a thing that a lot of people really don't think about is, you know, and I say a lot of people meaning the guys that aren't like, you know, me or you or JD or any of our buddies that are in the industry that tune bows that actually know, oh, I need to get this thing paper tuned and then go and shoot it and tune it to the whatever broadhead I'm using. They just think, oh, I'm going to shoot a field tip all summer and then throw this fixed blade on there or this mechanical or something, and it's going to fly the exact same. And then they shoot an animal, miss by 3 feet, and they're like, well, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
And
I did that starting out. I didn't miss, but I did the same thing starting out. Just threw it on there.
I've had, I mean, you know the story. I had one experience where I had I guess you could call it a miss because I didn't hit what I was aiming at. I still hit the deer, but it had nothing to do with me. It was just the broadhead opening up, which led me away from mechanicals for a while because I don't want that. But then the thing that it, you know, turns into is like, you know, you hear stuff like, oh, single bevel's the best because it penetrates better and it, you know, corkscrews and it'll break bone and this and that. But then I forget what podcast it was I was listening to. God, dude, it's gonna bother me. But it was a podcast with one of the guys from Day 6, and they were talking about comparing kind of like what we're doing, just comparing broadheads. And when they got on the fixed blade portion of it, I think it was Kafaru cast, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say it was Kafaru cast. The dude from Day 6 was like, you know, the single bevel hype, the reason that people push that is because it's cheaper to make. If you really look at it, as far as cutting and penetration and all that other stuff, a single bevel supposedly doesn't do as well of a job as a double bevel. And he even went a step further and said a double bevel with bleeders is like, from their testing, the best that you can get. And it just kind of, I don't know, it threw me for a loop because it's like, if you really think about it, what does a steak knife have? Or what does, you know, any knife have? It's double bevel. You're using that to cut. There's no single bevel knives out there. I mean, he used an example like a machete is single bevel, but that's because they're sharpening them with rocks. They only do one side.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, are you planning? So you're planning on sticking with the Stinger?
It depends. I mean, really the only reason why I want to stick with it is because it's cheap and I don't want to, because the only single bevel heads that I really want to buy are either the VPA ones or the Grizzly stick ones, and both of those are kind of expensive. Yeah. So because I'm trying to save for my wedding this year, I think I'm just going to stick with what I have and use that up. But I mean, I'd be open to trying a single bevel. I just never have tried it.
Yeah. I mean, see, again, that's why I'm struggling with it on what I want to get. Cause you know, VPA makes a great broadhead, right? Like the Omega is probably one of the best broadheads I've seen.
You had a perfect experience with it.
Oh, dude. I mean, literally, you couldn't have asked for a better scenario. And I really am curious what would happen, especially now with the new setup and everything. And I'm going to be a little bit heavier than I was last season, maybe like 12 grains heavier. So I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. But I do want to see what that broadhead does in a shoulder. and not like the thick part. Like I'm talking the scapula, the skinny part that you can blow straight through. So I don't know. I mean, I also have been looking at mechanicals, just kind of wanting to tinker with that, see what new stuff has come out. I mean, there's a few that I would never shoot. One of them is like a pair of scissors, and it'd be a great turkey head, but I'd never shoot it at a deer. I just
Pair of scissors. Which one is that?
I don't really want to say the name because I know the guys, but um,
is it did Trent do a review on it?
yes.
Okay, I know.
You know what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's wild.
I mean, I get the idea, but I know someone that used that broadhead last season and it broke every single arrow that it was screwed onto because the energy jump was just too much. It was literally breaking arrows on impact.
Yeah, I don't like forward. I wouldn't use there's like a lot of people have hate for all mechanicals, don't use any mechanicals, but the only ones that I would never use is any front deploying ones. Yeah. I just don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had arguments with guys who say, front deploying is the best because you get the point goes in first and then it opens up. And it's like, yeah, but you're not getting that entry hole. You're getting like a pinhole, basically a field tip hole, and then you're getting a cut, and that's cool. But if you don't get a full pass through, you have absolutely no blood.
Yeah.
And then what? So yeah, I agree. I mean, if I ever did shoot a mechanical again, it would be rear deploying. And
I did lie. The only forward deploying one I would try is the Grim Reaper ones.
Yeah.
Because everyone I know that's used those gets pass throughs and has zero gripes about them.
Well, you know why? Because they have a razor tip. Their tips are actually sharp.
Yeah.
They're not like some chiseled point that, you're not even trying to hit bone. So why? I mean, I get the idea, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to go outright and say it. The mechanical game is interesting because I feel like they're getting to a point the same way that these bow manufacturers are getting to a point where there's really nothing else you can do. You can claim that it's faster. You can claim it has a bigger cut. You can claim this new retention system is better than everybody else. But at the end of the day, a lot of these new broadheads coming out that are mechanicals are just either a cheaper version of something that's already out or a improved version. Like the Beast head. I was telling JD today, what I would like to see is somebody have a Sever and a Beast go head to head on an animal, roughly the same size, whether it's pigs, deer, elk, whatever. I want to see how that blade lock system works on both of them and which one works better. Because the Sever swings and the Beast basically flexes. And
the Beast is like spring loaded, so it can push the blades back, but then the spring pushes the blade back open.
Exactly. But it makes me wonder, and I understand, people listening to this are going to be like, oh, well, that's why you use fixed blade because you don't have to worry about it. I get that. I get it.
Yeah.
But if somebody wants to use a mechanical, which of those two is going to lose less energy?
Yeah.
If you want my opinion, I would say the Sever because those blades swing back and forth. So if you hit a rib, you know what I mean? Like if you hit a rib and somehow the other offside blade doesn't hit the other rib, like say you're using a 1.5, like a 1.5 or a 1.75, where the cut's not big enough. And I don't know the exact spacing between deer ribs, but let's just say the cut's not big enough and you only hit one blade on the rib.
Yeah.
I think that's going to have more, pass through capability than something that's just going to flex and is a 2-inch cut and it's going to hit both ribs.
I mean, we could try to do that comparison because I pre-ordered the Beast heads and you have Severed.
Have you still not gotten them?
Those still haven't came. They started the pre-order thing. I don't even know when, like December or November.
They still haven't gotten here.
No, but whatever. They said they'll get here. If they don't get here, Josh Bomar is going to hear about it. But
oh man, yeah. I mean, I like the idea behind the Beast head. I get it, but some of the claims that they're making, like the blades open up at 700 miles an hour. It's like, dude, okay, cool. I don't know. Maybe they do, but you're gonna scare the living crap out of that deer when that arrow goes
Yeah.
through, because that's insane. And the
I
hole's big, but
yeah.
how far is it gonna
I
go?
would I would imagine I was just want to say this before I forget. I would imagine that the beast head, while it's going through an animal, if it went through and hit one bone and one of the blades folded back, a beast versus a severed, I feel like the beast head, because it's spring loaded, it has something. If a blade hits a bone, it has something pushing the blade still. So it might be like minuscule amount of it loses more energy, but I feel like it would have to, because the sever would just it just freely doesn't it. So doesn't the severed blades lock open and then it freely
Mhm.
swivels as a
Yeah,
locked position? Okay. So
yeah.
yeah.
But here's the problem with the severs, and this whole conversation kind of reminds me why I switched to fixed blade. Even though I want to do the test and I want to try it out and see what really happens, the one thing I've heard the most about severs is the wound channel. When you actually look at it and you see like the entry compared to the exit, a lot of times, at least from what I've heard, a lot of times it looks like only one blade is open on exit. And so with that, what I'm kind of thinking is like the way that that broadhead is designed, when you hit something hard, so like you were saying, it swings, right? So say it's
Yeah.
going in and there's a rib right here and it hits it. Well, now that blade is tucked in there,
Oh yeah.
and that blade, the other blade is still going, which is fine. The idea is that force up here is going to push it back out. Well, A, you're losing energy when that happens. And B, I'm not saying it won't happen, but I'm also saying that when that first blade is closed, or even when that broadhead's going through, you can
Hmm.
get stuff inside of that ferrule, and
Yeah.
and then the blade's not going to close completely to where it's not going to get deflected or something else like that. So
Yeah.
I, I don't know, dude. I want to try it because I know, the mega meat. I've shot two animals with it, recovered both, and granted, the second shot was terrible, but that was my fault, and I had nothing to do with the broadhead. It was user error. Um, I personally feel like that's the most popular mechanical on the market right now, and
Yeah, but like at the same time, I feel like that's the most popular. I feel like it's the most popular strictly because of marketing, because they have what's the dude? Red Arrow makes a bunch of videos
yeah,
promoting it.
bone
Uh,
collector,
Bone Collector is the biggest one.
yeah,
I know Chris B is huge. He promotes it a little bit, but he kind of promotes the dead meat more.
yeah. I was gonna say he
But he
promotes the
still
meat a lot.
promotes it. So I think it's just a marketing thing because some of the famous people use it. So newer
Yeah,
guys tend to jump in and use it because I don't know. I've come to like after like you and I were texting about after watching a video of Thorin Bradley, the axe dude, trying to use it was a four-bladed wedge trying to split a log four ways,
hmm,
and he couldn't even drive it. And we're talking about a dude who looks at a log and it splits, and he couldn't drive that wedge into a log.
yeah,
And so like then I thought about it, like the tip on a mega meat is that wedge. It's literally just like a pyramid. And I just feel like that is a very inefficient penetration
yeah.
like tactic.
Well, so here's the thing. Here's the trade-off that I've seen. And I know you've probably heard this 1,000 times, but if you're shooting a mechanical, you're going for the most damage possible, right?
Hmm.
So if you shoot a mega me, we'll use that one as an example. The hole that that thing makes is insane, but the
Yeah, it is.
penetration's not. I mean, Thor is a perfect example. He shoots nothing but mega me. He gets full pass throughs every time. Does
Yeah.
that mean that someone like me or you won't get that? No, you probably would, but you have to hit him in the right spot. Um,
Yeah.
I can firmly say that, Pickles over here, I shot him with a mega meat and it embedded in the offside shoulder. and my bow was not fast. My arrow was heavier, but it wasn't tuned. The flight was terrible, and it was a quartered away shot. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's all
Sounds
circumstantial, you know.
it's yeah. It sounds like with that it probably would have passed the reviews perfectly broadside. But yeah, I know the hole you're talking about because my fiance's brother shot his buck in our opening week hunt this year with a mega meat.
Mm-hmm.
And he gut shot it, but like with the one that you gut shot with it, it was a huge hole.
Dude, I could have put my head in there if I wanted to. Like, and that's the thing with mechanicals is if you're gonna shoot that, I always will tell somebody go for the biggest cut that you can get because
Mhm.
you want the most damage. If that's what you're dead set on is shooting a mechanical, you want the most damage you can get. My problem is when you've got these mechanicals that are less than 2 inches, and like a 1 3/4 inch cut. Okay, you're talking about a 1/4 inch difference. It's
Yeah.
not that much different. And I'm sure this, especially the ones that are rear deploying and the slap cut stuff that some of these guys have. Yeah, you're going to get a bigger hole, but you're also losing energy when that happens. So I would say, the things like a dead meat, I've always like I would want to try one, but I've always questioned why would I do, and I'm not knocking that broadhead. It's just the way I think about it is why would I take a 3 blade, 1.5 inch cut when you can literally get a fixed blade that has that and you don't lose any of the energy. The only thing you might run into is tuning, but if you can tune a bow, you can figure that
Yeah.
out, right? So that's the only reason. That and having switched, but like before, I was looking at dead meats and I just didn't pull the trigger because it's like, why would I give up 1/2 inch of cut when there's no need to? You're getting less devastation than you would with a 2 inch cut.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The mechanical stuff, G5 is coming out with this new 2 blade. Basically looks like a rage. I am curious on what that's actually gonna do, how that broadhead's gonna perform. I listened to the episode with Dudley talking about it. I'm not gonna say I'm not a Dudley fan. I'm neutral. I
Yeah.
just I don't know. I feel like when what I would have done, all right, if I was G5, what I would have done is taken the Mega Meat platform and looked at the old Havoc and done something with that instead
That's
of
what I was hoping they were gonna do.
yeah, so was I. When I first heard they
Because
were coming out with a 2 blade, I'm like, all right, perfect. It's gonna be just like a Mega
I
Meat,
know.
thicker blades. It's gonna be killer. And then it comes out and it looks like a Rage. And I mean,
I know. I
okay,
was so bummed.
yeah. Well, and the thing is, like Rage, dude, I I will. I used to talk crap on them a lot, but I will say now that, especially after talking with Joe Miles, I mean, I've killed deer with a Rage. This one over here on the couch, I killed him with a Rage like
Hmm.
3 years ago, and he went 10 yards. Granted, it was a crossbow, but still, that was the beginning of the journey into archery. And I don't know, man. The broadhead thing drives me nuts. And
Mm-hmm.
the only thing I'll say that mechanicals have on fixed blades, as far as you know, something that is just better, there is no argument about it, is blood trails are so much better.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had to track pickles over 100 yards, and that doe I shot with the single bevel Omega went less than 100 yards. So, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a trade off. So I just I'm curious what that new G5, what is it, like the T2 or something like that? I
It
think.
is the T2. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious what that's going to do because I will be upfront and honest about it. To me, it just looks like a Rage with a little bit different internal designs, and that's it. So,
Yeah.
if they fix the problem of, them not opening up and maybe the blades, which I know when Rage came out with the no collar, that I thought was really interesting because you don't have a
Mm-hmm.
rubber band anymore. Um, we're just gonna have to see what happens because they claim they shot 7 animals with the same broadhead and the blades were fine, but that's hard to believe. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I,
Think,
I
go
I'm
ahead.
tempted to get it and try it, but I was just like, I just wanted to talk about how bummed I was that it wasn't like a Havoc V2 because I shot my first deer with the compound with a G5 Havoc, and I got that head because my uncle who taught me to hunt, and you've seen his trophy room. I've sent you pictures
Mhm.
of it. He shot countless deer with that before I started using it. He shot his biggest 2 bucks with it. And that was just like a straight up good head. It had a little bit of an issue staying, I think it had an issue staying closed
Yeah,
because the
little spider
retention
clips.
collar was, yeah, it was a little weird. But man, I loved that head and I was really hoping that they were gonna like put a better twist on it,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
it is what it is.
my personal opinion on mechanicals is if you're gonna shoot it, shoot a two blade. I know I say G5 mega meat and I know I say dead meat and all of that, but if God came down right now and said, "Hey, pick one," it would be a two blade mechanical. If I was going to go
Mm-hmm.
with mechanicals, obviously I'm not shooting those anymore, but it's it just makes more sense. You get better
Yeah.
penetration. You don't have as much drag. I don't know. I mean, my real conundrum is single bevel and double bevel because
Mm-hmm.
going back to that, I don't know which one I want to do. Cannot decide. Oh boy, what are you grabbing?
Well, my dog's barking. I was just seeing if
Oh,
someone was here, but
but yeah, I just I didn't have, and I think that's why the Omega is as good of a broadhead as it is because it starts off double and then it goes to single. So you get the cut
mhm.
of a double in the beginning,
You
and then
mean like at the tip it's a double?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that to me is where like all this double bevel, single bevel crap should go. And I think a lot of other companies, granted, I know that design is patented, but I'm sure they can do a different idea. Like I know a new broadhead
Yeah.
company that just came out that what's crazy is they're single bevel, but it's the same idea. They've got double in the front, but the blades are curved. Like literally they're curved.
Oh,
That
they are?
it's weird, man. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
I've been meaning to get them on the podcast. And I'm sure Trevor's gonna listen to this and hopefully he doesn't get mad. But I have unfortunately not been able to remember. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's my fault. I'm sorry, Trevor. But I don't know, dude. The broadhead thing, like you can make it so complicated, or you could literally just grab some two blade or three blade fixed head off the shelf and kill something with it. Like the G5 Montec was a killer for years. It still is.
Yeah.
It's just the blood trail sucks. I mean,
Yeah. And like,
I'll say it
so,
honestly.
yeah. And I think like T Bone and my uncle that got me into hunting have the same mentality. It's that like accuracy
Yeah.
literally always wins.
Yeah.
It don't matter what you put on the end of your arrow. If you put it where it's supposed to go, I mean, you
You're
can't
good.
really argue with that.
Well, it's like it's like if you take I'll use this example. If you take um G5 Montec and you shoot a deer right where you're supposed to, right in the heart.
That's a
You're,
great head.
yeah, you're
It's
gonna
not,
kill it.
but it is. Yeah.
You're gonna kill it. You're gonna kill that deer. You may have more trouble finding it, but you're gonna kill it. And you'll probably find your arrow too off in the dirt behind it.
Yeah.
But how quick is it gonna die? And if you shoot
Yeah.
a deer in the heart with a mega meat, it's gonna die a lot faster. There's gonna be a lot more blood. You're gonna cut more
Yeah, the heart's going to
capillaries and
be in
arteries.
3 pieces.
Huh? Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, man, I feel like T-Bone is right when he says accuracy always wins. Anytime somebody asks me like about broadheads or arrow builds or any of that, I usually end the conversation with everything I said, but accuracy always wins. You could kill one with a field,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
also think people do need to think about it because if you've got a guy who's shooting 20, perfect example is I have a buddy of mine who shoots 26 inches. He's a
Mm-hmm.
26-inch draw at 70 pounds with a blackout and tree. So 315 foot a second, not a bad bow, but it's nowhere near as good as some of the higher end ones. It's not pushing out that much speed.
Yeah.
It's not. And he shoots I believe he was shooting Grim Reaper and Mega Meat last year. And I told him, I'm like, dude, I'm not saying you won't get a pass through because weird things happen. But if I was you, I'd switch. And this is before I got with VPA, but I was like, I'd go with the Q80 Exodus or VPA or, spend some money on broadheads because that's the first thing that touches the animal. And, it's really about, what you're hunting, where you're hunting, where you shoot them. Because I don't shoot for the heart. I shoot, 2 to 3 inches behind the shoulder, about 3, maybe 2 inches up.
I was going to talk to you about that because I have, this, my last 3 seasons, I have had an extreme tear of getting so unlucky with a bow when it comes to shooting deer. Like, literally, I couldn't, in the last few years, if my life depended on killing a deer with my bow, I didn't get it done. And it kills me. But I think my issue is I've noticed this whole time because, like we've talked about, I've killed 18 deer and 16 of those have been with a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And with a rifle, it's always just been, it don't matter what's in the way. I point and I shoot. The shoulder's not stopping a 30-06. And I think my issue bow hunting is when I'm practicing and I'm imagining shooting a deer with a bow, I know you're not supposed to shoot the leg bone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just my killer instinct of shooting a deer with a rifle comes in and I just go for a heart shot or I go forward lungs and I just keep thinking that I'm holding it too forward. So this year my goal is going to be to aim, not aiming for gut shots, but aim more back.
Yeah.
If I think I'm good, I'm going to try to go an inch back.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that actually makes me think of another point with broadheads. If you're shooting fixed blade, and this goes for three blade, double bevel, single bevel, bleeders, whatever. I don't care what it is. You have to 100% make sure that you are going to hit it in the lungs or you're going to have a terrible time. Because I will say that a mechanical, if you shoot far back, and I forget who said it. I want to say it was Troy. I think it was Troy. That no, actually it wasn't Troy. Shit, who was it? I don't remember who it was, but somebody told me one time that if you're going to be shooting close to the shoulder, go with fixed blade. Because if you hit bone, you have a better chance of getting through it. If you shoot farther back, go with mechanical because if you get a gut shot, you want the biggest hole you can get. That's the way I look at it is, I know where I'm shooting at, I don't have to worry about a gut shot. And I don't have to worry about blades opening up. I don't have to worry about any of that. But if you're going to shoot how you were saying, further back, obviously you're not going for gut shot or liver or any of that. But I don't know. I mean, your best bet would be to get a 3D target. If you got a 3D deer target and you could just shoot once a week or every day if you had the time, which I know you don't, but if you could just shoot once a week and figure out where to aim, it helps so much.
Yeah, I had a 3D target last year, but I remember all my shots I was practicing for heart punches way forward. So
yeah, see, I mean, I don't want to say you don't want to do that. I mean, that's a good shot, but in the moment, can you make yourself do it? Is the question.
Yeah,
you got to think about that. That's one thing these guys will always say. On oh, there's deer on camera. Look at that. Sorry. That's one thing I see guys say a lot is oh, well, just go for the heart shot and do this and do that. It's dude, that's fine. But because I've tried that and it doesn't work unless you do it every day and drill it in your head. Okay,
yeah,
draw back, get the pin on the heart, stay there. Don't just go through the motions in your head and then just slightly squeeze it. You're good. But a lot of guys, me included, start getting shakes when they see a deer and they've got the bow in their hand. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I felt that every time last year. So I don't know. I told JD, because he's doing target stuff and he's gonna hate me for saying this, but I'm gonna be honest about it. When he shoots and he's not in tournament, dude's breaking arrows. Like he's Robin Hooding so much. He's breaking, he's shooting through fletchings, all of that stuff. When he goes to a shoot, and I've shot with him, so I've seen it in person. When he goes to a shoot, he gets in his head, and then he starts making little mistakes that cause the arrow to go maybe hit an 8, like an 8 ring or a 5 ring, or maybe he's going for 12 and he hits a 10 or something, right? So I told him, I'm like, dude, when I went to the range this past weekend, I guess when this drops, it'll be on Monday, but the Saturday before, I think it was like the 6th. Like, so on the 6th, I go to the 3D range with my buddy Christian. And the one rule I always have is I don't care, like when it comes down to 3D target, I don't care about the score. I go for the kill shot. A double lung or hard shot. I don't care what the points mean. It doesn't matter to me. But every time I caught myself, I'd be drawn back and I'd have to like mentally tell myself, okay, center, get it level, and then I'd want to just straight pull the trigger. But like you can't do that. You have to keep yourself focused. And I think that's a big problem that guys that shoot bows have, is they think but that's what I'm saying is, like, you and I both started hunting the same way. You started hunting with a gun, so did I. I had to break myself of that shoulder shot, right behind the shoulder idea, because with an arrow, it doesn't work. It's, and if you're shooting 1,000 grains, yeah, you'll go through anything, but nobody does that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think for you, I would just shoot as much as you can, stay away from that shoulder, and then if you've got a range near you or someplace or know somebody that's got a 3D target, just shoot the crap out of that thing and focus on like where you want to shoot, and then go up to that target and look and be like, okay,
yeah.
if I had a fixed blade, what would this have done? If I had a mechanical, what would this have done?
I should take because on a 3D target you don't have a crease in the shoulder. I should take a piece of
Some of them do.
huh?
Some of them
Yeah,
do.
not the one I was using.
Oh, okay.
But I should just take a piece of tape and run it like
Yeah.
in line with the back of the leg and run it up and down and just try to aim like right on the side of that every time. Yeah.
That's a great idea. I mean, you could even honestly, get one of those block targets where it's got the vitals, like the one I just got a couple weeks ago. It's got a side that has the vitals in it. And you can mentally picture like, okay, so that's what I'm hitting. Granted, it's not the exact same, but you can in somewhat at least get an idea. And then like when you see that silhouette, because it's all, to me, the thing I've learned is it's all about the silhouette. It's all about the shape of the animal. You don't have to think like, how Troy does. And I'm not saying he's wrong, but a lot of guys don't think this way. Is you don't have to look at that animal and be like, okay, the arterial artery is right here. So if I hit that, the aorta goes into that. It's like, bro, just find a spot on a target. And then when you're hunting, do the same thing. It's repetition. So I don't know, man. I mean, I know that kind of went a weird way, away from broadheads.
Yeah.
But I don't know. My recommendation is anything VPA makes. I know people will be like, oh, I was just saying that, they don't pay me. I don't get paid by them, but their broadheads are fantastic. So, for anybody who's wanting to get a different broadhead, I recommend that if they want to go fixed. Because, I mean, honestly, fixed blades, even though the holes aren't as big, the blood trails aren't as good, they don't go that far.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird. And actually, I think you and I talked about this, is you've heard about if you shoot a deer or any animal with a fixed blade that they sometimes don't react. I'm going to call I'm not calling BS on that, but tell me if this makes sense. You have an 1.25 inch fixed blade, right? Say it's a double level, and you shoot a deer and it runs and you have to track it 100 yards. Do you think that deer felt it?
I mean, it had to have felt something, but the thing is, like, they're a wild animal and their pain tolerance is way astronomically higher than ours. So, like, yeah, they felt it, but I mean, you don't know what they go through every day.
True.
They've gotten hit by cars sometimes and been all
Yeah.
right. But
I
also,
correlate
like,
like the idea of what a mechanical does compared to what a fixed blade does. If you want to compare those two, mechanical scares the crap out of them. Like you might as
yeah,
well just, take a hatchet and smack them with it because
yeah. Sometimes you can
basically what you're
hear the
doing.
difference too when they hit
Oh,
deer.
dude,
You can hear some
100%.
mechanicals hit, and it makes a way louder sound.
Let me tell you this. When I shot pickles with the mega meat, I heard it. And when I shot the prayer buck with the rage, I heard it. It sounded like a balloon popping. When I shot
Hmm.
that doe last year with the fixed blade, didn't hear anything. It literally just went right through her. But she
Hmm.
still ran 80 yards. So I guess the reason I brought that question up is like some guys I know will say, oh, you shoot them with any fixed blade. They go 20, 30 yards and they fall over.
Yeah.
I know that that's true. I've seen videos of it. But what it makes me wonder is like, what's that blade hitting? Is it passing, is it missing the ribs and it's just going through vitals? And then, yeah, the deer has no broken bones, so it doesn't freak out. It might have some
Yeah.
stinging going on or coughing or whatever. Yeah, that's going to freak them out a bit. But I just wonder, you know, when you shoot a two blade and that happens, or you shoot a deer with a two blade and it goes further than 30 yards, in my opinion, you had to have hit a rib or broke a rib or something. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So I don't know. I'm kind of rambling a little bit. It's just sort of frustrations I've had because you know, I think that fixed blades are definitely more reliable, but I also wish there was a way to get a bigger cut out of them and then fly right.
Yeah.
Because the biggest fixed blade I've seen is 1.5 inches, and I've never shot it, but I mean, then you start talking about planing and arrow flight, and it just gets really, really messy.
I've
So
got some 4-inch fixed blades in the basement, but those are for turkey heads.
yeah, those make no sense to me. How the hell do those fly right?
I don't know, but it's
It
just
makes
with
no sense.
extra. I mean, Chris B did a video. He did a video like series of building a turkey arrow setup,
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
he didn't even go crazy with the fletchings on the back. He just kind of used a little bit bigger than he usually does and went 4 fletch, and his was flying amazing.
Yeah. I
But he was using the smaller one. He was using the Magnus decap heads. The one that I have are built different, and they would definitely fly a little bit worse than the Magnus ones.
Are they built different?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I could literally debate the broadhead thing all day. I've heard
Hmm.
Don Higgins and Joe Miles talk about it. I've heard Ranch Fairy talk about it. T-Bone's talked about it. It really, I feel like, comes down to how you shoot the animal, you know?
Yeah.
And like whether you believe the single bevel hype or you believe the giant hole hype. I mean, I just wish there was something we could do to innovate. Like again, I know that I keep plugging VPA, but with that Omega, to me, that's innovative because now you've got
Hmm.
a double bevel going to a single, but then you've got mechanical broadhead companies coming out and they're just copying each other. And it's like,
Yeah.
have we hit a point now where we don't know what else to do? Or like, what else could you do? I mean, the only thing I
Hmm.
would consider, like for G5, for instance, is take the mega meat, thicken those blades up to where they don't bend or break, but then you've got more weight. So you have to shed the weight somewhere. So what
Yeah.
does that mean? A weaker ferrule? I mean, I feel like we've kind of pigeonholed ourselves a little bit,
Yeah.
but I don't know, man. The other one, I guess, if we want to close on that is the hybrids. Those are interesting to me, but I've
I
shot
know Jeff.
hybrids.
I know Jeff Sturgis swears by those. I think his favorite one is the Muzzy
Trail
one.
car. Yeah, I shot that, and you want to know my experience? Fell apart on me.
Hmm.
Like I shot a target, a regular target, and I pulled the arrow out, and I was missing a blade. One of the blades was bent, like one of the mechanical blades was completely bent, and I was like, dude, this is on foam. What's it gonna do if it hits bone?
Yeah.
You know? Um, I do. I mean, I know that there's some companies that make good hybrids. I forget what it is. Gosh, it's called the K2. I think that's what it's called. Affliction,
Yeah.
afflictor. That's what it was. Yeah, that is an interesting idea because if basically if you could get a VPA fixed that has locking blades that are hidden, I think that would be an amazing design. Like
Yeah.
combine sever with VPA, you got a broadhead that gives you a huge hole. If you hit bone, it's not a big deal because you've got the fixed blade going through it. But again, I'm not really too well educated on that because I've never killed anything with a hybrid, so I don't know what happens with them. But I don't know. I just want to see something different. I want to see something
Yeah.
new that's, like, oh wow, this is going to be a game changer. Even though I hate saying that, I just want to see somebody come out with something that isn't just a, you know, new retention system because that we've got those, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I've been rambling for over an hour about it. So I'm sure people are gonna listen to this and be like, all right, he said VPA about 50 times, keeps going back to the mechanical stuff. Um, I don't know, man. I mean, how are you feeling about this season, this upcoming season? I know you did a ton of work, prepping the land that you hunt. You've already had a bunch of deer on camera. Like, what do you think this season's got in store for you?
um, the spot that I did the cutting at, I think I put that together to be a pretty freaking killer morning rut spot. I think that's going to be pretty neat. But like we talked about, I've been rabbit hunting for the first time this winter, and that has been that like the rabbit hunting by itself is just a blast because we're just out there laughing, having fun, jumping on piles of brush, just being like middle schoolers again. And but like my biggest takeaway from the rabbit hunting is like anyone who hunts public land who wants to step up their knowledge of said public land, I think that people should start rabbit hunting because every single spot, it's because we have our mind focused on finding rabbits, but every single spot we find rabbits, I find several deer beds. Just every single brush pile or thick spot that we find rabbit tracks and just rabbit sign is where we find bedding. And so after doing that, I've got some pretty killer public land spots picked out. One of them, the one that I found is a foolproof pinch on public in between a giant oak flat and oak ridges that gets hammered with pressure, and then an ag field that gets hunted. And I'm hunting a pinch that's near bedding in between both of those spots. And like, I think that one's just going to be time on stand.
Mm-hmm.
If I can pull myself to do an all day sit in the rut, I think that I will shoot something there if someone doesn't beat me to it or something crazy happens. And like we said, I have a lot of turkey access, and
Yeah.
I've gotten along with a lot of farmers, and I think my odds of getting some doe only spots to fill the freezer and test some broadheads are going to be pretty decent.
So, like, what? That's something I've never, I guess, because I haven't really done it much. But like, why doe only? Why don't you, why don't you like just say, hey, can I deer hunt on your property?
Because everybody deer hunts in Michigan. It's
Well, yeah,
like
but So
It's
everybody
just
hunts near Atlanta too. So they still
yeah,
do
but it's just like for me, I've tried my hand at door knocking for deer, and I have one spot to show for like tons of doors knocked on.
Yeah.
And I just feel like at big farm, because when I'm looking for guiding spots for turkey hunting, I'm looking for usually only the big farms because I need
Mm.
room to run around and move around with guys. So on those big farms where they stick out on Onyx, they stick out when you're driving by, they've already been knocked at, or they already have someone hunting them 9 times. No, not even 9 times out of 10, like 99 times out of 100 around
Yeah.
here. And if I can just squeeze in and say, "Hey, look, I just want to bow hunt and I just want to shoot does," I just think that my odds will be a lot better at getting a spot that way because if I just say, "Hey, I'm a passionate bow hunter and I love big bucks and I want to bow hunt on your land," they're going to be like, "Well, Jimmy and Johnny already hunt and they're pretty serious about it." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, if you just let me doe hunt, I won't even go in the woods. I'll just sit on the field edge and hopefully some come by me." I just feel like it takes less intrusion to shoot does for the most part, and I can work around guys that are already hunting there because, I mean, most of the people around here, once December hits, deer hunting is not on their mind. And that's when some of these big farms get pretty wild with the amount of deer they're holding, and you'll drive by and there's 50 does in a field. So if I get permission at a spot and Jimmy and Johnny shoot their big bucks in November and haven't been in there since November, the first week in November, and it's the end of December, and there's a million does out there. I'd be more than happy to just have doe permission.
Yeah. It's just so hard for me because like shooting does is cool, but chasing big bucks is way more fun.
Yeah.
So I just, I don't know, man. 'Cause I guess it's because, obviously I watch a lot of the Seek One stuff and I'm buddies with Jay Maxwell and, he's given me a lot of advice on door knocking, even though I haven't really done it much.
Hmm.
And he always says like, you're going to have way more no's than you will a yes. But once you get that yes, it, it can change the entire thing, you know?
Yeah.
I just think that you're talking about like farms and stuff, and I don't know the terrain of where you're at, but if it was me, I'd be focusing more on the smaller batches of woods that nobody's going to hunt because it's too small. And
Yeah.
I mean, you could come across something that's pretty big because nobody's in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just the way I look at it, because out here, yeah, we got farms, we got tons of farms, but I'm not going to bow hunt a farm, like an actual ag farm.
Yeah.
Um, you can, and if you can figure out where the deer are coming from and find good access and all that stuff, it can work. But the thing I've learned, especially after last season, hunting pickles or not pickles, trike on 1 acre, that's all you need. I mean, there was a
Hmm.
guy, I forget where he was, but this dude killed like a state record. It was like a freaking 220, 230 deer on 1 acre.
Yeah.
And that buck was just using it as a travel corridor. So I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not telling you what to do. I just think that, if you're getting these spots for turkeys and you've got the experience now of door knocking, you've been told no 1,000 times.
Hmm.
You already know, like you're obviously good with rejection. I'd probably sit there and cry and be like, please. But that's
There's
because
there's some properties where I get told no, I kind of lose it because it's just like, man, there's big toms out there right now.
yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like you I personally feel like if you went out there and just pulled a Seek One, right? And knocked on smaller, wooded area properties, maybe some neighborhoods or something like that. Like what the ideal thing for me, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes and was like, all right, I door knock for turkeys, found that. Now I want to find a spot, maybe one or two that I want to deer hunt for a big deer.
Yeah.
And if I'm wrong, tell me to kick rocks. But I don't think that I'm wrong on this. I would find a place where somebody lives that has it I guess 2 farms on each side. So like an ag field on the left, ag field on the right, maybe even one behind it, quarter mile away or something like that. And I would try to hunt that because
Yeah.
for a fact those deer are going to be bedded up in there, and that they are going to be moving through there, and you could find sign. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
don't know if you have that around you, but
Yeah. Most of what I'm knocking at is flat ag. So,
see,
but I had a spot like that, and man, I got so unlucky. But when I got it, my old neighbors from up north where I used to live, they moved down here, and when
Mhm.
they moved down here, they asked me if I could help them move into their house, and I was like, "Yeah, sure." And they were renting it first from a family member of theirs, and said family member owned 40 acres with a cornfield and a creek going through it, and it was like primo. And the dude that owned it was like 70 something, so he only hunts opening day gun season. That's it. So I was like, "Well, what if you let me bow hunt?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And the first year, I just never got around to it. And then the next year, I only got around to it once, and I had three 120 plus in bow range in 2 sits, and just got unlucky with just not the right circumstances to get it done. And then the following year, and this was all going in blind, was my only hunting. The following year, this last season, I was like, man, this year, if I can get that place again, I'm going to run cameras and find some preset spots to sit in. Because when I went in blind, I was ground hunting, and I think
Mhm.
that's what bit me in the ass was I just couldn't shoot because of all the brush on the ground. And so I was like, man, this year I'm going to pick out some preset spots and saddle hunt it and set up in some preset spots that I'm running cameras on, mock scrapes on. There's this one corner of a CRP field he had that I was going to plant just a little bit, just to funnel them to one spot before they hit the cornfield. And then I text the dude, call the dude, because it's like an hour and a half away. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to text him and be like, "Hey, what's your schedule this weekend so I can come out and talk to you?" And didn't answer me. So I hunt my old neighbors and I talked to them. I'm like, "Hey, have you heard from what's his nuts at all? He hasn't answered me for a while." And they're like, "Oh, his son hunts it now." And I was like,
Mm, yeah, it's the name of the game, dude.
"Yeah,
People move away, they give permission to other people. That is the crappy part. That's kind of why I like public so much now, because you don't have to
mm-hmm,
worry about it. I mean, you do get people, like I had guys, I had a dude from Florida, man, come up to the public land that I was hunting. I met up with him just by happenstance. We both parked next to each other, and we weren't hunting anywhere near each other, but we parked at the same place. And he told me where they were going, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I've scouted over there. I've got cameras over there. It's a good spot." But like, you don't have to worry about losing spots.
yeah,
So I don't know. Public can be great and it can be crappy, but there's just something about knocking on a door, getting permission, and then like you were saying, you had some good deer within range. It just,
very good."
yeah, it
Had
just didn't
like
work.
a 140's 8 point at like freaking 5 yards, and there's
Yeah,
just
see,
one.
telling you, man, go knock on some doors. You might find the new Rampola buck. It could be Rampola's great, 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 great grandson. I mean, I don't know.
I should,
I just, I want you to kill something big again,
yeah,
because
me too. It's
it's been a
been
while.
this season, it'll have been 7 years since my big one.
Well, seven's the Lord's number, man. This could be the year.
Yeah, could
No,
be.
that's the
Yeah.
way I look at it.
But I wanted to add on the does only thing. So you've shot a few more deer than me with a bow. I've got one compound kill under my belt, and I just
Mhm.
feel like I want to hunt does only because I'm not saying I don't get excited for them. I lose it when I'm shooting at a doe, but not like I do when it has antlers. And I almost feel like with some of the bucks I've had on camera, if they came in range, I would be doing a disservice to the deer to be trying to shoot them with a bow because I know I'll fall apart on a deer of that quality. Like
that's the wrong way to look at it.
I know, but like I just don't. I screw up on does and forkhorns. I don't want it to be a 130 and I completely lose it. So I just kind of want to hunt. I want to focus on does for a couple years and like just get some bow kills under my belt to build the confidence up before I.
I mean, that's smart. That's not a bad way to go about it. And I'm telling you right now, that's when the giant 160 is going to walk out and you're going to be like, screw it, I'm going to shoot it. And that's how it's going to work. That's how it always works, man. If I
that's also what I'm.
Go ahead.
I said that's also what I'm kind of hoping for.
I remember telling Jessica before last season started, I said, well, I killed pickles last year, so I'm not going to worry too much about, killing a big buck. Yeah, if I get on a few that are bigger, I'm going to try to kill them, whatever. But I'm going to focus mainly on does. And granted, yeah, I killed more does. Actually, I didn't even kill a buck last year. So, yeah, I killed more does. But the second pickles walked out, or pickles, trike. I keep saying that. The second trike walked out, all of that went out the window. And I had jelly knees. I got picked out by 2 yearlings, one of which I ended up killing later in the season. And I mean, dude, I understand what you're saying. I totally get it. So I think you're on the right track wanting to kill does first and get used to it. But you can also potentially fix that by just shooting your bow more and getting used to it. Like one thing I've kind of taught myself how to do, and I said this to JD and a few other guys, is when you are practicing, don't just try to hit the mark. Put yourself in that mindset. Like imagine that you're in the tree, the buck of your dreams is 20 yards away, or even 40 yards away. Make it harder on yourself. And do every single thing that you would do if that deer was standing right in front of you. Like draw back slower, anchor in, and then just get as comfortable as you can and then slowly squeeze it off. And I mean, that's the best way to do it.
That's been nice about how I've been shooting in my basement is working out and lifting and getting my heart rate extremely elevated.
Yep.
And then in between sets, immediately walking over and picking up my bow.
Yeah.
And trying to hold it steady while my heartbeat is insane.
I mean, the best thing to do, like that I've seen, is definitely psych yourself out, psych yourself up, and have an elevated heart rate. And when you try to shoot your bow like that, because when I shot my first when I shot the first doe and I didn't recover her because the arrow broke, the shot should have gone straight through her shoulders. It was a good shot. I mean, you've seen the photos. You saw where I hit her at. Should have died. I was shaking, but there's something about like when you get to that point and you're anchored in, I just feel like it's a mental game that you have to sort of block everything else out and focus on what you're doing. Even if you're shaking a lot, you can still recover from that. So I don't know. I think if you shot your bow more, you would get to a point where you're like, okay, I know I'm going to be nervous, but I can still do this. That way when that 160 comes out, you're not falling out of the tree.
Yeah.
Even though you're in a saddle.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. And then like last year I definitely I shot my bow a lot. I wouldn't say enough, but I shot it a lot. And I definitely made too many excuses like, oh, it's too hot out today. All the mosquitoes are really bad right now. Like I did that a lot. So I definitely can shoot more. So that's one thing I'll do this year. And who knows, maybe after I run cameras on some spots, I'll have some serious game plans and all that doe crap will go out the window and I'll tag out on Pope and Youngs or something. But
well, I'm gonna tell you what I told JD in a different way, but you know how, and for those who don't know, JD after deer season decided he wanted to quit hunting, go into full target, and that's it, right? a week ago, he told me he wanted to get to hunting again, which I told him when he said all this. I'm like, bro, you're gonna want to come back. I know you. You're gonna want to come back. You can say whatever you want. You're not going to convince me. And I was right. It's the same thing with you, man. As soon as you get those cameras out and you see the first forky, you're gonna be like, oh, I'm forget those, man. I'm going to kill them, and that's just how we are. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I used to say all the time, like I said earlier in the podcast, size doesn't matter. Bull crap, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still okay with shooting, a little forky buck just to get deer meat in the freezer because we get 2 tags. But as soon as that first buck's gone, if I don't really have, and I only do that if I don't have too many big deer on camera. If I got a bunch of big deer on camera, no, I'll let little guy walk. Even though I will want to shoot him. Like I had a 2-inch spike in front of me last year at what 15 yards on public. Could have shot him, but I held off.
Man, shoulda.
Dude, I got one even worse. That same morning, that buck, I guess the wind shifted and maybe he smelled me or saw me or something. I don't know what the deal was, but he moved off and this little, I mean like little doe came walking out within 5 yards. Could have smoked her.
Yeah.
And that was on public. And I'll sit here all day long and say, oh, I want to kill a deer on public. I had opportunities. I had plenty of opportunities, but it's being.
Yeah, that's just part of like trying to be a serious bow hunter is
Yes.
like my fiance's brother always gives me shit for it. He's like, "Oh, should have shot that deer." Oh, like it'll be something like I'm walking into a spot and I bump into a deer and like, yeah, if I really put my mind to it, I could have shot it, but it's
Yeah.
also like I'm bow hunting. I want to beat a deer at its game and have it walk by me, not know I'm there, and just drill it. And I
Yep.
want it to be this deer. And like, I think that's just part of like the fun of it is like, yeah, I'll sit here and bitch and moan like, oh, I didn't shoot 4 deer last year like I wanted to. But then I think like, what about those times your you had does walk 12 feet under your tree stand and you're like, well, there might be a big buck here. Or the time you had your crosshairs on a doe in your rifle and you're like, I don't feel like dealing with it right now. It's just like
Mhm.
sometimes it's not right and you don't want to do it. So
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
just the fun part of it.
I guess to wrap it up, because we're almost at 2 hours of just straight BS
Holy
session.
shit.
Yeah, I know. Tiffany's up in her playroom right now, probably asleep, knowing her.
Oh,
But
for sure.
the thing I'll say to wrap it up really and sort of put a pin in it till the next time is when I was hunting that small property last year,
Yeah.
dude, I went 2 whole months where I saw deer every single time. And every single time I never, except for one time I got picked off. And that was, of course, when Trike was out there and you know the whole story. But
Yeah.
I could have shot probably freaking 6 does, but I didn't
Hmm.
because I was waiting on Trike. And it goes back to like what you were just saying is, you had the opportunity. You just didn't take it. You
Hmm.
didn't feel like dealing with it, or maybe you weren't confident or whatever. It The thing that I learned is when you get to the point where you're like, all right, I'm seeing deer, but I haven't killed one yet. And this is strictly with a bow. Obviously, you've killed deer with a gun, but if you're talking about wanting to get, more experience on your belt with a bow and get more used to it, so when that big one shows up, you're not falling apart. First off, you're gonna fall apart. I don't care how many deer you kill, you're going to fall
Hmm.
apart. That's just part of it. But it, you get to a point where you're like, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna shoot this deer. I killed
Yeah.
two dogs. Yeah, 2 dog-sized deer last year. All right. I'm not ashamed of it. I did think the second one was bigger, and she actually turned out to be smaller, so that didn't help any. But it's getting the experience. You're never gonna get the
Hmm.
experience if you don't do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the way I look at it. I mean, people can listen to this podcast and think that you know we're just blowing hot air, and maybe the broadhead
Hmm.
thing is too much. Maybe I just rambled on about the same thing 50 times. Who knows? Hopefully BPA enjoys the amount of times I said their name in this fast. But
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I think your season's gonna be good this year.
I think so too.
You've gone long enough without killing a big deer that I think things are gonna change, especially with you putting in the effort you're putting in.
Yeah.
And
I've never, I've shed hunted, but I've never like winter scouted, like went out and like looked at it in the sense of, oh, this is what it looked like during deer season, and then like picking out stuff
Mhm.
like that, like, oh, I could sit in that tree right there and shoot to this scrape or shoot to this
Yeah.
trail. I've never done that before, so I'm already off to a decent start.
Yeah, I mean, scouting is literally one of the most important things because I forget who it was. I think it was Michael Perry when he came on. He said, and it could be wrong. So if it's not him, then I don't know who I'm talking about. But somebody said, yeah, you can scout in the summertime, but most places, now Georgia's a little different, but most places you scout in the summer, those deer won't be there when deer season comes in. So there's no point.
Mm-mm.
You can see what's around, but that deer can move 10 miles and you never see him again until the next summer if he survives.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, winter scouting is, in my opinion, better because then you get to see, like, all right, this deer, these deer were here from at least November, which is season all over the country, and they were here in December, which a lot of places have that season. So I think you're right. I mean, a lot of big butt killers will say they scout all year long. We don't have the time to do that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and really, I think right now it's kind of, I'm not gonna say pointless, but it's somewhat pointless because the deer don't even have antlers yet. They're just now growing nubs, and they're not going to be there when deer season comes up. Maybe for a
Mm-hmm.
couple weeks, but what if you can't make it out there? Like I'm missing opener this year, so it I don't know, man. There's a lot more to it than the regular people will think. You just put corn out and you Elmer Fudd your way into a tree and you shoot the biggest
Yeah.
in the world. It doesn't work like that. So
No.
I don't know, dude. But look, this episode was good. Before we wrap it
Mm-hmm.
up, you want to give us any sort of other shameless plugs, anything that you've got coming out on TikTok? I know you've got a YouTube channel called The Chase. Right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm terrible with names, so forgive me. But yeah, is there any other shameless plugs you want to do before we wrap it up?
uh no, not really. Just check out the it's just Brock Wingo on Facebook. It's a public account. The Chase. It's the underscore chase 810 on Instagram. And if you look that up on YouTube, it'll take you to my channel too. And on TikTok, it's also the underscore chase 810. But TikTok's been gay lately, and I never get over 400 views anymore. So go
Well,
look at it
hopefully
if
this
you
will help.
want to. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll see
hopefully.
what happens.
Yep.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Brock, and we'll get you back on as deer season gets closer, and
Yeah.
you start seeing bucks sprout, and we can cover the turkey season on how your awesome, awesome guided hunt's gonna go. I really
Yep.
cannot wait for that. I wish you could call me when you have that person with you, but no, you can't. Yeah, man. Thank you for coming on, dude. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.